They don't always say the words. The ones you love, when they know the end is near, don't sit you down with grand speeches or tearful announcements. No, that's not how the soul prepares for departure. It's quieter, more sacred, more subtle. They begin saying goodbye without ever using the word. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it entirely. You'll hear it in the way they talk less about what they want to do next summer, and more about what they remember from last spring. You'll hear it in the sigh before they say, "I don't want to be a burden." You'll feel it in the way their hands linger longer when they hold yours. You'll see it in the way their eyes soften when you leave the room, as if they're trying to memorize the shape of you. These are not coincidences. These are preparations, soul-level transitions. But our problem is this: we are so afraid of death, we silence anything that smells like it. We tell them not to talk like that. We rush past their emotional hints. We dismiss the sacred signals because we're not ready. And in doing so, we rob ourselves of holy moments. Moments laced with heaven, moments drenched in divine timing. There is something spiritual that stirs in the final season of a person's life. A clarity, a depth, a softness mixed with strength. The veil between this world and the next begins to thin, and their spirit begins to speak truths their mouths may not even understand. But if you're sensitive, if you're listening not just with your ears but with your heart, you'll catch it. They're not just talking. They're transitioning, and they want you to see them. Some people leave with a bang, but many more leave with a whisper. They won't say, "This might be my last time hugging you." They'll just hold on longer. They won't say, "Please remember this." They'll simply repeat it more often, as if trying to etch it into your bones. They won't say, "I'm scared to go." They'll just look out the window longer than usual, as if their soul is searching for a horizon you can't see. And if you are wise, if your spirit is awake, you won't miss it. You won't shush their soft goodbyes. You won't dismiss their final gifts. You won't cover your ears because of your own fear. Instead, you'll do what love demands. You'll stay present. You'll lean in. You'll let the tears fall if they must. Because in those subtle moments, eternity is speaking through the temporary. The ancient scriptures tell us there's a time to be born and a time to die. But what they don't say is how often we ignore the signs that the latter is near. We are taught how to celebrate birth, but not how to honor a departure. We throw parties for arrivals, but we whisper around exits. Yet in heaven's rhythm, both are sacred. To ignore the signs is to miss the message, and the message is always this: cherish them now. Not after. Not at the funeral. Not in eulogies and framed photos. Now, speak what you've been holding in. Say thank you. Say I'm sorry. Say I love you and mean it. Ask the questions you've been putting off. Let their final words be seed, not sorrow. Let their presence, even as it fades, teach you how to live. Because when they start saying goodbye without using the words, it's not because they want to go. It's because they've made peace. It's because the soul, when ready, starts packing in silence. And they're inviting you to join them in reverence, not in fear. You don't have to say everything perfectly. You just have to be there. Present. Listening. Surrendered. Open. Because the ones who are leaving are often the ones with the most to teach us about staying. And in those final, fragile moments, they're not just teaching you about death. They're teaching you how to live. So don't wait until the casket to listen. Listen while the breath is still warm, the eyes still searching, the hands still reaching. Because once they stop speaking, you'll wish you'd heard every whisper. There's a kind of silence that doesn't ask for permission. It enters the room unannounced, sits in the corners of once lively spaces, and lingers like a presence you can't quite name. It happens slowly, but undeniably. You look around and realize they've started withdrawing. They're still here, but not all the way. You used to hear their laughter echo down the hallway. You used to watch their eyes light up when their favorite song played or their grandchildren visited or the sun hit just right on the porch. But now, there's a stillness, a distance, like their spirit is standing halfway between two worlds. You speak to them, and they smile, but it's faint, as if their heart has already begun to loosen its grip on the soil of this life. Most people call it aging. Some call it depression. But the spiritually awakened call it what it truly is: transition. The soul is beginning to withdraw, not in fear, but in preparation. The body may still be here, but the spirit is slowly gathering itself, slowly untangling from the roots of the earth, slowly lifting its gaze toward a realm unseen. We've been trained to panic at this kind of silence, to label it, to medicate it, to rush in and cheer it up with noise and distraction. But there is a sacred dignity in letting someone fade with honor. There is a divine intelligence in the human spirit that often knows, long before the body admits it, that its time is drawing near. You see, the soul has memory. It remembers where it came from. It recognizes the light on the horizon when it begins to appear, and when that moment comes, a holy hush settles in. They stop reaching outward and begin turning inward. Not because they've given up on life, but because life, as we know it, is no longer their home. You think they're ignoring you, but they're listening to something deeper. You think they've stopped participating, but in truth, they're preparing. Preparing to cross over. Preparing to let go. Preparing to meet the one who's been calling them, gently, quietly, through every breath. And this is where you must shift. You must stop fighting what is natural and sacred. Stop trying to pull them back into a world they've already begun releasing. Yes, love holds on. But faith learns to release. Faith understands that the slow withdrawal isn't rejection. It's a return. A return to peace. A return to stillness. A return to the beginning. Scripture tells us that there is a time for everything under the sun, a time to plant, and a time to uproot. What we forget is that even the most beautiful tree must eventually surrender its leaves. And when it does, it doesn't shout. It doesn't weep. It simply yields. That's what you're witnessing when an elderly soul begins to pull back. It's not sadness. It's surrender. They're not giving up on you. They're giving in to the call of eternity. And it's not your job to force them back into activity. Your job, beloved, is to meet them in the stillness. To sit beside them, not with anxious energy, but with sacred presence. To honor the mystery. To touch their hand and say, I see you. I'm with you. I'm not afraid. Because when you stop fearing their withdrawal, you create space for peace to enter. Do you understand how rare that is? To give someone the gift of peace in their final season. Most people die fighting because the world around them is too afraid to let go. But when you honor the quiet, when you bless the stillness, when you allow the soul to whisper instead of shout, you help them transition with grace, not grief. And this is the hidden beauty their withdrawal invites you to awaken. To stop taking moments for granted. To pause your rushing. To hear what they're not saying. To feel what they're feeling. Because in those silent pauses, eternity is speaking. Heaven is near. And if you're quiet enough, if you're present enough, you'll begin to hear it too. So don't miss the holiness of their silence. Don't fear their detachment. Don't label their quiet as defeat. Because when the soul begins to withdraw from this world, it's not disappearing. It's being summoned. There is a shift that happens, so subtle, yet so unmistakable. When a person's days begin to draw near their close, it's not in their walk. It's not even always in their health. It's in their words. They stop talking about tomorrow. They stop planning next year's garden, next month's trip, next week's outing. The calendar no longer holds their attention, because the soul has begun its quiet turn, not toward what is ahead, but toward what has already been. They begin speaking in memories. Stories you've heard 100 times, they begin repeating them. Details long forgotten are suddenly vivid again. People from 50 years ago are called by name, as if they just left the room. You think they're rambling. You think they're forgetting what day it is. But the truth is, they're remembering what time it is. When the spirit senses its coming release, it starts reviewing. Just like a traveler lays out their belongings before a long journey, the soul starts to lay out the pieces of its life, gently, carefully, and yes, often out loud. It's not confusion, it's clarity. It's a life taking inventory of itself. And if you're spiritually awake, you'll feel it. You'll know those stories aren't just for nostalgia. They're for you. They're inheritance in disguise. You'll hear them talk about a childhood struggle, and it will be the exact answer to the problem you're facing now. You'll hear them mention a name you never cared about, and later discover that name holds a key to your legacy. You'll hear them repeat the same truth over and over. Not because they forgot they told you, but because they need you to remember it when they're gone. You see, when they shift from planning to remembering, it's not just aging. It's the divine download. Heaven is beginning to gather their record. The book is being reviewed. And while we scramble to keep them rooted here, they've already begun releasing what they know they can't carry across. And so they offer it to you. In pieces. In moments. In memories. What you call repetition is really a spiritual transfer. But here's the tragedy: too many miss it. Too many brush off their stories as the mumblings of old age. Too many dismiss the shift in conversation as irrelevant when in fact, it's sacred. It's not rambling, it's revealing. Scripture reminds us to honor your father and mother, that your days may be long. But honoring isn't just about respect, it's about receiving. There is wisdom buried in their words, and if you're too distracted by your phone, your timeline, your schedule, you will miss the moment that was meant to mark you. This is where you must become still. This is where you lean in. This is where you start asking questions you never thought to ask before, because one day the stories will stop, and you'll ache for just one more tale, one more voice, one more memory. You don't realize how valuable their voice is until silence replaces it. So when they begin living in their memories, don't pull them back to the present. Go with them. Let them take you there. Let them walk you through their joys, their regrets, their lessons. Let them speak as long as they need to, even if it takes hours to say something that could have been said in minutes. Because what they're giving you isn't just content, it's spirit, it's testimony, it's legacy. And what if the final blessing they were sent to leave you is hidden in one of those stories? What if there's a phrase, a sentence, a name, meant to shift the entire trajectory of your life? Don't miss it. Because when they stop talking about the future, it means they're placing their past in your hands. When they stop looking forward, it's because they're looking upward. And when they start remembering out loud, it means you are now the living carrier of their voice. So write it down. Speak it back. Pass it on. Because the words they leave behind are not meant to fade. They are meant to fuel your future. They may not say it outright. They may not have the strength to declare what's weighing on their heart. But pay attention. Because when an elder nears their final stretch, their affection doesn't disappear. It transforms. It grows quieter but deeper, subtler but stronger. They may not speak as much, but when they reach for your hand, they hold it longer. They may not say, "I love you," the way they used to, but their eyes say it 1,000 ways, without a single word. You see, the closer the soul gets to crossing over, the less it needs to impress, and the more it longs to impart. Ego begins to evaporate. Pride softens. The masks come off. What's left is something eternal, something pure. And what remains is love, not loud, not forced, not dramatic, but distilled, divine, and unmistakably real. This is the kind of love that is no longer performing, no longer trying to be enough, no longer fighting to be understood. It simply is. And it shows up in the smallest, most sacred gestures. They may straighten your collar one more time before you leave the house, not to control, but to care. They may ask if you're hungry, even when they themselves have no appetite, because nurturing is how they say, "I still have something left to give." They may leave the hallway light on when they know you'll be home late. Not because they fear the dark, but because they want you to feel safe, even in their fading strength. This is not routine. This is not habit. This is the soul, in its final season, pouring everything it has into presence. And if you're not discerning, you'll miss it. You'll write it off as simple concern. You'll rush past it, distracted by your timeline, consumed with tomorrow, blind to the sacred now. But hear me, when the end draws near, every act becomes intentional. Every gesture becomes a message. Every touch becomes a blessing in disguise. And isn't that just like heaven? To speak in whispers when we're only trained to hear shouts. To wrap revelation inside ordinary moments. To give the greatest gifts not through speeches, but through presence. The world has taught us that love must always be visible, vocal, validated. But eternity teaches us this. The truest love often speaks loudest in silence. Think of the prophets of old. They didn't always come with armies or noise. Sometimes they came with a mantle and a whisper. Sometimes they anointed with oil and walked away. Sometimes the greatest blessings were passed down not in what was said, but in what was done when no one was looking. So when your aging parent, grandparent, mentor, when they grow quieter, but their gaze grows longer, know that something holy is happening. They are seeing more than what is in front of them. They are loving you with eyes that remember the beginning and can sense the approaching end. And in that gaze, in that touch, in that final act of affection, there is often more revelation than in a lifetime of conversation. Do not ask for more words. Receive the weight of their silence. Do not wish for more activity. Honor the grace of their stillness. Do not grieve the change in their affection. Recognize it as refinement, not reduction. Because in their quiet love you're witnessing the very heart of God, steady, unshakable, unspoken yet unmistakable. You're seeing the divine rhythm unfold in real time, less noise, more truth, less rush, more presence. Less proving, more being. So sit with them. Hold their hand back, let your silence speak too. And when they finally let go, of your hand, of their body, of this world, know that what they've left behind isn't emptiness. It's a legacy written not just in memory, but in the marrow of your soul. They may never say the words again, but everything in them is saying this. I was here. I loved you. I see you. And now, I leave that love with you. Because the purest love is not the kind that demands to be noticed. It's the kind that remains, even after the room has gone quiet. They don't always come out and say it, but if you listen closely, they're preparing you. Quietly, gently, and sometimes without even realizing it themselves, they begin placing small pieces of instruction into your hands. A whispered reminder, a note on the fridge, a drawer they suddenly want to show you, a story you've never heard, followed by a name you didn't know mattered, until now. These aren't accidents. These are not just aging habits or casual moments of thought. These are holy transfers. Because when a soul senses that its assignment is nearing its completion, it starts handing off the baton. Not with ceremony or applause, but with humility and urgency. Not out of fear, but out of love. Love that says, I may not be here much longer, but you will. And I need to make sure you're ready. You think they're being overly cautious. You think they're just trying to stay useful. You think, why are they telling me this now? But the truth is eternity is beginning to press in, and when it does, the Spirit begins to prioritize what truly matters. This is why the conversations shift. They start telling you where the important documents are. They repeat the names of people you may need to call. They bring up things that sound oddly specific, seemingly out of nowhere, until months later, when you're faced with a moment and remember exactly what they said. That is not coincidence. That is divine preparation. And if you're not careful, you'll brush it off. You'll say, don't talk like that. You'll rush to change the subject. You'll drown it in positivity because you're afraid of what it really means. But listen to me. If they are brave enough to prepare you, be brave enough to receive it. Because what they're giving you is more than information. It's impartation. It's their last act of stewardship. Their final assignment is not just to die well, but to leave you equipped. It echoes the pattern of the wise. Like Moses, who didn't enter the promised land but spent his final days pouring into Joshua. Like David, who gave Solomon the blueprint for the temple he'd never build. Like Paul, who wrote letters with urgency, not for comfort, but for continuity. They all knew, my race is nearly over. But someone else must carry the fire. And that's what they're doing. When they begin preparing you, it means they've accepted what most of us spend our lives denying, that our time here is temporary. That eventually, the tools we once held will be passed on to other hands. And what greater love than this? To spend your last season not focused on your comfort, but on their future. So the next time they hand you that worn notebook, take it. The next time they ask if you know how to run the generator, or find the insurance file, or cook that one dish they always made for you, pay attention. Don't say, not now. Don't say, later. Because later is not promised. And they know it better than anyone. And perhaps the greatest tragedy is not that we lose people, but that we lose the wisdom they were trying to give us before they left. We mourn their absence, not realizing they were trying to make us ready for it. We say they're gone too soon when in truth, they were signaling their departure all along. So lean in. Listen deeper. Don't just hear their voice. Discern the divine beneath their words. Because the preparation of the dying is not meant to be pitied. It is meant to be honored. It is the final act of the wise. It is the legacy of the faithful. It is the love of a soul that knows it cannot stay, but wants you to flourish after it's gone. And one day, when you're the one with years behind you and fewer ahead, you'll do the same. You'll say the words. You'll pass the lessons. You'll leave the blueprint in someone else's hands. So let them prepare you now. Because every instruction they give before the silence is not just for survival. It's a prophetic seed meant to carry you through what's coming next.